So Lucy, can you tell me a little bit about your role at Technology Networks?
Of course. I'm the Senior Scientific and Digital Content Producer here at Technology Networks, and I've been here for just over 3 years. I love my role. I won't shut up about it. It really allows me to be creative, uses all of my skills across the entire content creation process. I manage loads of different video podcasts, interviews, and I interview global experts, so it's incredible. But it all starts with really in-depth research and guest sourcing, moves on to developing scripts and even storyboards. And I've also kind of really honed in on my filming and presenting sort of skills as well. And of course, editing everything together, making sure that it's super high quality and that it's easy to understand and all ready for our audience.
Perfect. Okay, so, and then you may not know, but today is Science Education Day, so I thought it'd be a good question to ask. What originally inspired your interest in science?
So it actually came from my grandfather. He always really encouraged discussions about science, and we were constantly watching David Attenborough. My granddad actually reminds me a bit of him, to be fair. But David Attenborough, I'm sure you're aware, if you've watched him, you'll know, he really has this way of presenting the natural world to the whole family. So myself as a young 11-year-old through to my parents and even my grandparents. And I think there's just something so inspiring about seeing all of these wonders of science unfold on the screen in front of you. Then, of course, I have my family there when I'm there with these questions like, how do bats use sound to locate their prey, or why are some animals glowing in the dark? So I'd say that's probably where it all came from.
Cool. And then I know that science wasn't originally where you were planning to head, so could you tell me a little bit about how you found your way into science communications?
That is absolutely right. So although I loved science, it wasn't initially kind of on my radar. My earlier interests were leaning towards things such as art, but whilst I loved the idea of pursuing art, there were more practical considerations, I guess. So obviously the career path can be really challenging. I was sort of presented with the idea that science offered a bit more stability and financial security. So I gave science a chance. I did biology, physics and chemistry at school, and then I went on to do a degree in biomedical sciences, which by the way was absolutely fantastic. I got offered a job straight out of uni, really luckily. I was working in a lab in Derby, and then I did a translational placement in Manchester. I got to see some incredible things, life-altering in fact, probably. But both my work there as a biomedical scientist combined with the work in Manchester gave me these really valuable insights into the scientific world. But I'd say probably during this time, I knew that I loved to talk to people. I love to know about people. I want to understand them. And I've always seen, as a patient myself, or as a friend or relative or someone within the healthcare system, that there's a real disconnect between what the science is saying and the general public and the way that it's spoken about. I mean, you only really have to look at COVID to understand what I'm talking about there. But I started a science blog from the back of this to share complex scientific subjects and topics in a much more accessible way. It caught a really good following actually, and then that further solidified my absolute desire to go all guns blazing into SciComms, and it really allowed me to have that creative side with the scientific side, which I didn't ever know would be possible.
Yeah, and it's translating it for the general audience as well, isn't it? People who may not have the deep knowledge. So yeah, it's really cool.
Massively.
And then how would you say you feel your experiences sort of shaped who you are today?
So I think it has absolutely opened my eyes to probably just the incredible potential of science to improve people's lives, not just NHS and surgeons. It's more than that. It's kind of globally, people are researching personalised medicine, neurotech, women's health, transplantation, discovering new cancer treatments with minimal side effects. Because I'm no longer in one specific field, so I'm no longer just in the lab, I get to see the positive impact that research can have when it's told to people in the way that they can understand. So I think it's made me much more compassionate. I think it's made me a much more empathetic communicator. I'm always striving to kind of bridge that gap between complex science and the public and get everyone to love science as much as I do. So I'd say that's my answer.
Brilliant, I love that. And then what would you say you wish, if anything, that would be different about like science education, so maybe like in school and things like that?
This is a really good question, because I think whilst the core scientific subjects are really important, I think it could definitely benefit from incorporating like a wider range of fields right from a young age. I think if I'd have known that scientists didn't just have to be like a guy in like a lab coat, it could be me with my career in science that allows me the flexibility to work from home in my pink office. I think I'm connecting people that have got huge names in science around the world with our audiences. So I think if I'd have known that, and I think if more people do know that that is the avenue you can go in science, then I think like how much more accessible would science become with the amount of people that would be coming into it. So I think that would make a huge difference.
And then last question would be, what piece of advice would you give to someone who has an interest in science but maybe isn't sure like where they could go with their career?
So I would say my number one piece of advice, 100%, LinkedIn. I think it can seem really intimidating, but you can really see people's career progression. You can see the endless possibilities of jobs that are completely out there, and you get to connect with people and talk with people about what they're posting about. You can even reach out and you can have a little chat with them. But I'd also say probably just remembering that science careers are much further than just being in the lab, doing lab research in a lab coat. I think also it's okay to not quite know where you want to go right at the start. So I think staying curious and embracing kind of your own journey within science is key as well.